Welcome to Right on the Mark with your host, Mark Young. Today's podcast is going to be about how to cut costs while saving time and energy. But first, I want to give a shout out to the lovely Kim for last week's podcast. She did a great job and got to give her props. But she won't be on today's show, so it's just going to be myself. So hopefully you still tune in. But, I wanted to talk about some cost savings, and I wanted to talk about a little energy savings. It's the winter here in western Pennsylvania, and I thought it'd be a good time to talk about that. My grandparents were brought up through the Depression years of the, early 1900s. And my parents were a product of that. They carried over their energy savings into their house, into their life, and just the general overall house cost savings ideas and things like that. And I've learned through the years just watching other households and my own household and just how to get through, the winter months on how to save energy and time. And I thought I'd like to go over some of that with you. And some of this stuff you might have heard, and some of this stuff might be new to you. But some of the things that I've learned through the years is, going through the energy crisis. I remember as a kid, just getting gasoline was tough. Gasoline, you think nowadays is you can get it anytime you want. You probably fill up your tank and you just charge it, and you go on for a week or two until you fill up again, and you go as far as you can on that tank of gas. But back in the day, you fit in $5 worth and get you a few days till maybe payday. Then you put another $5 in and get you through to another payday. And, filling up the tank just meant that you were rich. You know what I mean? You just had a lot of money when you filled up the tank in the 70s, probably the 60s as well. But, I can remember my aunts and uncle and grandparents, not only would they save gas, they would, save coffee grounds. They would save tea bags and reuse them. They would reuse, recycle, whatever you want to say, of anything that they could. And whatever they reused over time, they'd probably just put in their garden and just use it for growing vegetables or growing, whatever it was, vegetables that they wanted to eat. I can remember like all the watermelons and cantaloupes that were grown in my aunts and uncles and my grandparents' yard. It used to be that just, country folk would do that, but city folk would grow that as well, although the soil probably wasn't as rich and nice as it was out in the country with, if you had cattle or cow or something like that. But, people in the city did the same thing. They would try to grow tomato plants, lettuce. They try to grow carrots and, watermelon, cantaloupe, stuff like that. But, and then you'd save the seeds and then you'd replant it again. So basically, you were recycling back then. I know now people think of recycling of just cans and plastics and cardboard and paper and stuff like that. But back in the day before garbage collection came, people just recycled food, seeds, like I said, coffee grinds and tea bags like that. But, getting back to the gasoline, I can remember you'd have odd and even days of getting gasoline. So if your license plate ended in a 2, that meant that you were on even days. So let's say that was Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or something like that. I really can't remember all that much about it. I just remember going in the car and my folks talking about it. And if your license plate ended in, say, a 3, you were on odd days. So that's when you had to stop and get gas on odd days. And they looked at your license plate, I guess, too. And I could probably remember gasoline prices as low as 60 cents. Or my grandparents would, be really specific and go, look, there's gas for 59.9. Didn't really know what the 9 stood for, but they would always say, look, 59.9. So I guess that meant for 59 cents and 9 tenths, you can get a gallon of gas. A lot of that stuff rubbed off on me. A lot of that stuff that I used to listen to, because spending time with, your aunts and uncles and grandparents, you remember a lot of that stuff, and a lot of that stuff rubbed off on you. So I could remember gas going up when I drove probably to 80 or 85 cents. And I was always think to myself, look, It's 89.9 a gallon. Just had to throw in that 9 tenths in there for some reason. But yeah, a lot of that stuff rubbed off on me. The lovely Kim will always, get annoyed whenever I'm going around, like shutting lights off in the house or opening the stove just to let the heat in the winter to try to heat the house a little. It kind of gets annoying, but I think she's kind of used to me by now. Yeah, but to this day, she still laughs on how I try to conserve energy and save money and cut costs. And I don't know if other people are like me or not, but even let's just say I was a millionaire and I had a ton of money and it was money wasn't an object and I could spend it however I'd like. I would still save energy. It's a lifestyle, not just saving money because you're poor. It's a lifestyle. So if I was rich, I'd still go around shutting off lights, closing doors, and things like that. Just because I think it's, just good for the overall general health of the lifestyle of, the earth or your family or what have you. So I think it's just a good idea in general just to save energy. So some of the things I wanted to talk about that I do that maybe you don't do or you never heard of is, speaking of cars, there's a lot of things you could do in a car that you could save energy, cut cost, and time. I can remember first driving, and if I took a hard cut on a right turn or a left turn, I never said it was my skills. I'd always say, oh, I'm trying to save a penny. I'm like cutting a corner to save a penny because, I took a couple feet off of that turn. So I'm like, oh, I'm getting my money's worth on gas mileage. So it wasn't because of my poor driving habits. It was always that I was always trying to save money. Oh, that's funny. To this day, it's, I try to, cut corners as well, try to take the shortest route to get there, or maybe just coasting a little instead of using gas and going the full, speed limits now are 70, 75 miles an hour. But if I can go 65 to 70 and coast a little bit longer in cruise control, I'm going to take that over speeding up because I think it saves more energy. A lot of appliances are even gauged that way in a house that it takes longer to heat up your oven. Now because it takes less energy. But back in the day, you could heat up an oven in 5 minutes and you can get to 400 degrees. Now it takes 15 minutes to get to 400 degrees, and that's energy savings. So if you translate that to cars, if you go at a lower speed, you'll go longer on a tank of gas than you will if you go at a higher speed on a tank of gas. And, I always keep that in mind whenever I'm driving. But there's a lot of other things that go into that too. I mean, geez. If you don't brake around bends, you don't have to use your brakes as much. So guess what? There's less wear and tear. So you could go 4 or 5 years without changing brakes. Just because you slow down and you coast around turns and you don't really have to use your brakes as much. And I know I drive the lovely Kim crazy with that, but hey, that's all due to my grandparents. I heard a long time ago from my grandfather, John, and, he was kind of a machinist, and he always worked on his cars, and he always did certain things a separate way, and he always told me, he's like, don't ever listen to that manual in a book because you'll go broke. Just change your brake pads and change your tires when you think that they're worn out and they won't pass inspection. So he always worked on his cars himself, and he would save money like that. I'm not really that much of a mechanic, so I could do a few things with the car, but doing brakes and changing tires just is out of my wheelhouse, so I really couldn't do that. So I always take it to the shop to get it done. But if you know where I'm coming from, you're always wanting to save energy just in a car. If you don't, let's say you don't run the heater in your car, you're going to get better gas mileage. Kind of like if you don't run the air conditioner, you're going to get better gas mileage. But my grandfather also told me that if you use the heat in your car, it's better than using the defroster because the defroster is a little bit harder on the whole HVAC system or whatever car system that it's going to require more energy and require more gas. So he's like, just run the heater, defrost just to defrost, and then once the windows are defrosted, switch the heater to save a few bucks. And I always keep that in mind. So use your heater a little bit more than just your defrosters, and, it can go a long way. So I like to think that, over time, I've been driving, over the 40 or 45 years or whatever I've been driving. I like to save a few bucks, but you know, you could think of your own ways of saving money, but just some of the things I picked up. And, being a homeowner as well, there's a lot of energy saving tips as a homeowner. I mean, we built our house in 1996, and there's a lot of things that weren't out there that's out there now. Like, they didn't really have Tyvek house wraps back in the late 90s. If they did, I didn't really know about it. Same as when Trek Deck came out. Trek Deck came out in the mid-90s, and I knew about that, but I think a lot of people didn't know about Trek Deck. People just thought to buy the wood deck that would wear and tear. But, they're always inventing new and better products. And, even nowadays, when they, when you build a house nowadays and you go with a good reputable company that do custom homes, they can insulate your basement, which kind of blew my mind. I never knew you could insulate a basement like in a slab. So the way you do that is my understanding is before you pour a slab, you do the walls of the basement. But when you pour a slab, you put a piece of plastic. I don't know if it's 3 or 5 mil thick plastic down, and then you put foam board, maybe inch, I don't know, half inch or 1 inch foam board, and you tape the seams and you put it down before you even pour your basement foundation. So what that does is that keeps the moisture down and it keeps the wetness out of the cement on the floor. So when you go in your basement, you don't get that clammy, cold feeling that you're in a cave, that you're in a basement. You practically feel like you're in the first or second floor of your house because you don't have that dampness, wetness, and coldness in the basement because it's insulated. And I witnessed that firsthand. I know myself and the lovely Kim went to go tour a house in Alto Piano, and we went in the basement, and I asked the realtor, I says, wow, it's really cozy and warm down there. I'm like, how do you get that? And the furnace isn't even on. They're like, well, we have a structural system that's insulated in the basement. I'm like, well, how do you do that? And that's how they told me how they insulate the floor. You don't get that with a lot of homes. A lot of homes, they just pour your basement and that's it. The only insulation you'll get is when you carpet it and put some padding down. But, some of those high-end homes, they insulate the ground before they pour the cement. So that's definitely one energy savings in a house. But there's a lot of other house energies, savings you could do. I mean, heck, like I said, I go around shutting lights off whenever you're not in a room. And you can even turn off registers when you're not, in a room. And, we're I'll say the lovely Kim and I are basically living in this house probably 80% by ourselves, with the kids leaving the nest and my oldest out on his own and my youngest in college coming home on weekends or every other week. So there's a lot of rooms in our house that we don't need heated or cooled. So I turn off those registers, and I think there's some savings there. And I can remember as a kid growing up, speaking of houses, I'm like, oh man, seeing my grandparents and my parents trying to do some cost savings, that would drive me nuts. I'm like, when I grow up and get a house, I'm going to buy a house with no windows. I'm just going to live in a shell of a house with no windows. This way, there's not going to be any air transfer. It's not going to be cold. It's not going to be hot. It's going to be perfect temperature, and I won't need a heating and cooling. But then, when you think about it, you need the sunlight and you need to open up windows. But as a kid, you think about all that. At least I did anyway in the 70s. But, you could lower your thermostat in the house too. A lot of people have the programmable thermostats where you could set it, whenever you're home to heat up and whenever you're away to lower the heat. And I really believe in that. I think if you're away, you could set that thermostat at 68, which our house recommends 68. And then whenever you come home, you could have it raised to 70 or 71, So I think that does go a long way. A lot of people will try to debunk that by saying, hey, it's going to run longer trying to get up to the temperature that you want whenever you get home. So if you just leave it at 70, I think you're going to be better off just keeping it at an even 70 temperature. So I haven't really done any testing on that, but that idea sounds good too. So I don't know what percentage is of people using those programmable thermostats, but maybe it's a savings, maybe it's not. And there's other savings too. I mean, come on, there's a lot of fireplaces out there that you could burn. We have a gas fireplace, so I don't have to worry about stocking wood in there. But you could always burn the fireplace to even out the temperature and things like that. But the basics I'll say is you could change a lot of filters in your house too. That'll go a long way. A lot of people don't know that you have filters in your washer and you have filters in your dishwasher. So those have to be cleaned periodically. I could do that maybe once a month just to make sure your appliances are running at peak efficiency. Everyone knows you have like a lint filter in your dryer, and everyone knows you have a filter on your furnace to change. But a lot of people don't know the dishwasher and the washer has a filter as well, just to clean out the lint. But yeah, that goes a long way about keeping those optimal just by changing the filters or cleaning the filters if that happens. But, a lot of people will say, oh, you're doing it the monk way, like Mark, you're OCD. You got to do all that on a special date and time and, drain your hot water tank at a certain time every month, to make sure that the settlement doesn't clog up on your hot water tank, things like that. But, I like to say, yeah, I think we all have a little monk in us. If you remember the Monk Show back in the day, the last 10 years or so on USA Channel, Monk had OCD and everything had to be a straight way. But, I'm not like him fully, but there's a little bit of Monk in all of us. And I like things, turned on, turned off and stuff like that. And, there's a lot of other savings too. And I always like to keep my appliances as long as I could to stretch the dollar out. Heck, on the keypad of a microwave, we'll say, there's a keypad that says, it has a 10 pad on it, 1 through 9 with a 0 on it. And you just press the time in to see how long you want to cook something. But, myself, I like to use double digits whenever I use a microwave. The lovely Kim doesn't agree with it, but I do because I think it's faster. As you could hear in the background, that she doesn't like it. But anyway, that you could heat something up, you could do 1-1 start. It's faster than going 1-0 start because the 1 and a 0 is probably 6 inches further away whenever you hit it. So if you hit the 1-1 start, it goes faster, it cooks faster, and you just saved yourself a couple seconds. I always think that's funny when people watch me cook something in a microwave. But hey, that's how it goes, and that's what I think works, so I'm going to go with it. But there's other areas, too, that you could save wear and tear on your house. I mean, heck, we've had carpeting in our basement for a while, and we got really thick padding underneath, and I always like to walk on the sides of the steps just to keep the wear and tear even. Sometimes if you get too thick padding, you kind of have that bounce effect. So, which means if you're wearing out the middle of the steps, it's going to be thinner than the outside of the steps. So some of our padding's like a 1/2 inch. So if you're wearing it down to a 1/4 inch, you're going to have a little dip in the steps. So if you walk on the edges of the carpet, you're going to wear it out more evenly. Even on the flat surfaces. If you rearrange your furniture once in a while, you'll walk on a carpet at different angles, and this way you'll get more wear and tear out of your carpet, and it goes a long way. And that's just some of the things that I believe in. And some people might not agree with it and might not want to change up their furniture as much as I do, but I always like to even it out because for some reason I just don't like the same worn out parts in a home, whether it's a floor, whether it's your garage, whether it's carpeting or whatever you have. I just like to believe in wearing it out evenly. There's a lot of other cost savings that goes a long way too. I mean, just in a kitchen, like I said, you could open up your oven after you've done bacon and just let the heat go in. Unless it's in the summertime, then you want to keep it definitely closed. But even the dryer, you could set the dryer up. You could set the dryer up to run a little bit longer and dry the clothes like at a more lower temperature that saves energy. So a lot of the appliances out there now are all energy savings. I mean, if you go look at it now, they all have pretty much stars on the product that you're buying, and it'll show you how much it's saving. So just in probably 5 years, the savings rating's probably gone up higher. We bought our washer and dryer about 10 years ago or 11 years, whatever it is. And I was just looking at that the other day, and I saw that you could save $109 a year by using this washer and dryer. So I was just, on the internet looking a couple weeks ago, and now you could save $50. You save $50 more. So, they're always coming around with better and more lasting or longer lasting products on the market that saves energy. So that's always a good place to start. I also think there's a lot of ways you could save in a grocery store too. I mean, if you're shopping in the market and you think that you're going through every single aisle like the lovely Kim and I do, and you see something that looks really good, you go ahead and buy it. And I always get excited when we skip an aisle when we don't need anything, because every time I say that we skip an aisle, I'm saving $20, because there could have been something down there that I saw that I would have liked that could have cost $10 or $20. So that's always good to skip aisles, but there's really no savings with that's proven, but that's just something that I get a kick out of, that if we skip an aisle, we could save a little money. There's some other ways. I mean, buying different products, and some people say buying a name brand product goes a long way. I kind of agree with that, but sometimes you could buy the generics and just as good. So I think you just have to pick and see what you like and choose what you like. A lot of these stores that are coming out around us, like the Aldis and the Walmarts that have been here for years, they sell a lot of stuff. They get a lot of high volume products in, but you have to, in order to save money, you have to buy their certain products. Some products are higher in price than others. We usually go shopping at Giant Eagle, and all of their prices are high. You just try to look for the deals. But the Aldis and the Walmarts just don't have some of those brands at Giant Eagle store. So, so you just got to pick and choose, and just kind of use your head and what you think to save a little bit of money on that. I bought a lottery ticket a couple weeks ago from a buddy of mine at work, and it's all for the month of February. And you could win like $50 a day if your number comes out on the daily lottery. So I get 2 numbers a day for the month of February. I think the ticket costs like $10. It was basically a donation for the Kiski area basketball team from one of my buddies at work. But I always consider that as a donation. But I never see any savings or any reason to play the lottery. In fact, I got a foolproof way to play the lottery. A lot of people ask, or a lot of people want to play the lottery just to win big. But I like to think I'm a winner every month, because I got a foolproof plan to win every month. Now, granted, you're only going to probably win $28 or $30 or $31 a month, but at least you win something, or at least you get your money back. And the only way to beat the lottery is don't play. Just don't play, and you're guaranteed to win $28 to $31 a month. That's my advice on lottery. But I'm never a big lottery player. I mean, I'll play when it's really, really big, in the millions and millions, and you think you have a shot, and you go in with people, family members or your work, your workers, and you pitch in a couple bucks or something like that. But I don't really play the lottery every day like a lot of people do. I don't even buy scratch-offs. I hardly ever buy scratch-offs unless I'm giving it away to somebody in the family. But gambling really isn't my thing. So there's no, being somebody who likes to save money, I don't see any point in gambling it away unless, you're just away having fun with the family, or, just in a big group. I could see having spending some money on gambling. But as for the most part, I don't really do that. So I don't really see any cost savings in that. Well, that's just some of the cost savings that I came up with over the years. I'm sure there's other ones that I can't remember or forget about, but I'd like to hear from you, to hear about your cost-saving ideas. I think the more we share, the more we learn. So I'd like to ask you guys, who's ever listening, to add a comment below, tap the bell, do the usual, subscribe, like, try to get it out there. This way we could all save together. You know what I mean? So the more people that listen, the more saving there is. That about wraps it up for Right on the Mark with your host, Mark. See you next time.